She was the child who trusted no one. He was the man who couldn't love again, until destiny placed her in his arms. The final eviction notice fluttered in the wind like a white flag of surrender, taped crookedly to the cracked door of apartment 3B. Amanda Williams didn't move. She stood barefoot in the threshold, her toddler clinging to her hip, both of them soaked by the rain. The ink on the notice had started to run, just like everything else in Amanda's life. Caitlin didn't cry. She never cried, not since the incident. But her wide eyes said everything: fear, confusion, the silent question every child asks when the world stops making sense. Amanda's phone buzzed in her pocket. Supervisor. Emergency shift. Double pay if you can be here by 10. Her heart twisted. Double pay could buy them another week. But the night childcare center was already locked up, and there was no one else. Not anymore. For a moment, Amanda just stood in the rain, torn between her daughter and their survival. Then she made the choice no mother should have to make. She bundled Caitlin in her oversized coat, pressed a kiss to her temple, and whispered, "You'll stay hidden. Just for a little while, okay?" They slipped into the night, the storm swallowing their footprints. The Mulvey estate loomed ahead like something out of a forgotten century. Stone walls, iron gates, lightless windows. Amanda entered through the narrow service corridor. She cleaned every inch of this place over the last 2 years. Tonight, she needed it to be empty, silent, safe. At first it was. She laid Caitlin on a folded blanket beneath the long kitchen prep table. Nora, the estate's elderly cook, was off tonight. No one else should have been here. Amanda whispered promises of pancakes in the morning and began polishing the marble floors, one room at a time. Then came the sound. Tires on gravel. A door slamming. Footsteps. Amanda's blood ran cold. Tony Mulvey, the billionaire recluse himself, had returned. He wasn't supposed to be back until Monday. But there he was, storming through the West Wing with 2 lawyers and a security advisor in tow, barking legal orders about a hostile takeover and someone leaking documents to the press. Amanda's hands shook. Caitlin couldn't handle new people, especially loud men, especially yelling. She rushed to the kitchen, but the worst had already happened. The laundry room door had shut and locked. From inside, muffled whimpers rose, quiet at first, then sharp with panic. Amanda clawed at the handle, whispering, pleading, praying. It didn't budge. Then a light flicked on behind her. Mrs. Nora. She must have come back for her forgotten keys. Without a word, the woman handed Amanda a hairpin and helped Jimmy the lock open. Together, they freed the child, sweaty, pale, trembling. Amanda gathered Caitlin to her chest, whispering soft apologies into her curls. But the night had one more twist left. A soft click sounded across the hallway. A connecting door, once closed, now ajar. Amanda turned just in time to see her daughter slip into the light-filled conference room beyond, straight into the lion's den. There, seated at the head of a sleep-black table, was Tony Mulvey, his expression carved from granite, surrounded by silence and stunned men in suits. And then it happened. Caitlin looked up and walked, unshaking, straight toward the man no one touched. She climbed silently into his lap, rested her head on his chest, and for the first time in years, Tony Mulvey forgot to breathe. Before we begin this emotional journey of trauma, healing, and the miracle bond between a child and the one man she should have feared, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, and subscribe so you never miss any of our daily uploads. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Now let's dive into the story. No one moved. The room, once filled with high-stakes tension and legal jargon, had gone completely still. All eyes were fixed on the tiny girl resting quietly on Tony Mulvey's shoulder, as if she'd lived there her whole life. The billionaire, known across Manhattan for lawsuits and silence, didn't blink. His arms, which had signed off on millions in mergers without a flicker of emotion, now held a trembling toddler with a gentleness no one had ever seen in him before. Tony's voice came low, rough, like it hadn't been used in days. "What's her name?" From the doorway, Amanda stood frozen, soaked from the rain, eyes wide with panic. Her heart thundered in her ears. Her name is Caitlin," she stammered. "I'm so sorry. I tried to keep her. She got locked in, and please, I didn't mean." Tony didn't look up. His gaze stayed fixed on the girl in his arms. "Caitlin," he whispered again. His throat worked around the name like it carried weight. Amanda rushed forward to retrieve her daughter. "Sweetheart, come here, please. I've got you now." But Caitlin only buried her face deeper into Tony's suit jacket, her tiny fists curling into his silk tie like it was the only anchor she had left. Amanda reached again, desperate. "Caitlin, baby, you're scaring me." Then Tony lifted his hand, not harshly, but gently, like drawing a line in the air. "She's okay." His eyes finally met Amanda's. "She's safe with me." The executives looked at one another, speechless. "Everyone out," Tony said, not raising his voice, but there was steel in it. "We'll reconvene tomorrow." Chairs scraped, papers shuffled. One by one, the room emptied until it was just the three of them. Amanda stood shaking. She had no idea what rules she'd broken, how badly this would cost her. But what terrified her more was how Caitlin seemed to know this man. As if she had found something in him she'd lost somewhere else. Tony adjusted the child in his arms, and his expression, tight and unreadable just moments ago, now cracked with something raw. Grief. 3 years ago, his daughter had drowned in a boating accident. Press had torn him apart. He hadn't been seen near a child since. Until now. Amanda's eyes filled. "I didn't know where else to go. I just needed the money for rent. I wasn't trying to." "I said there's no punishment," Tony interrupted. His voice was quiet again. "You did what you had to. God sees that." Amanda blinked, stunned by the softness in his tone, and even more by the word God on his lips. She backed away slowly, her heart tangled in confusion, fear, and awe, and just before she stepped through the doorway, she glanced back. Caitlin, silent as ever, had curled up against the man's chest, peaceful, like she'd known him forever. And Tony, his eyes were closed, like he was finally breathing again. "You didn't hear it from me, but I swear." She walked right in, and the man let her stay. Whispers trailed through the Mulvey estate like cigarette smoke. The housekeepers murmured behind pantry doors. The groundskeepers swapped stories over morning coffee. Mulvey, the Tony Mulvey, held a stranger's baby on his lap. He didn't just hold her. He didn't move. For 20 minutes. Amanda kept her head down, pretending not to hear. She scrubbed marble with trembling hands while Caitlin sat nearby, coloring a paper towel with an old lipstick tube. Every night at home, Caitlin screamed if Amanda so much as stepped into the next room. But in this mansion, the moment Tony Mulvey entered the hallway, Caitlin lit up like someone flipped a switch inside her. She reached for him now. Every single time. It terrified Amanda. And something deeper than terror, something holy and heavy, sat in her chest like a stone she couldn't name. She'd Googled him the night it happened. Tony Mulvey, age 38, fortune built from corporate litigation and real estate, divorced, one daughter Lily, deceased at age 2, same age as Caitlin, same soft curls, same timid smile. Amanda hadn't known about the child. No one talked about her, but grief has a scent to it. And every time she saw Tony standing silently at the end of a hallway, hands clenched, watching her daughter with a haunted look in his eyes, she could almost smell it. Pain. Unresolved. Buried. Rotting. "Do you want me to take her back to the kitchen, sir?" she asked today, voice low, not meeting his gaze. Tony stood frozen at his office door. Caitlin had waddled toward him without hesitation, arms stretched up, palms open in that trust-filled way only toddlers knew how to offer. She didn't ask. She simply reached. And he knelt down without a word and scooped her into his arms like she belonged there. Amanda's breath caught. The sunlight from the east windows caught his face just right, and for a second she saw it. He looked alive. Not powerful. Not wealthy. Just human. Caitlin squealed with joy, patting his chest with both hands like she was checking to make sure he was real. Amanda swallowed hard, suddenly unsteady. "Why her?" she whispered under her breath. "Why him?" her heart echoed. It wasn't just strange, it felt sacred. Later, in the staff kitchen, she pulled her Bible from the bottom of her purse. The pages were wrinkled and worn, but one verse stood out. "He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds." Psalm 147, verse 3. She ran her fingers over the words, almost in disbelief. "Is that what you're doing here?" she whispered to God. "Is this how you heal?" Caitlin fell asleep, that night clutching a necktie too large for her hands. It wasn't Amanda's, and just before Amanda switched off the light, she looked out the window, only to see a tall shadow standing under the garden's willow tree, still wearing a suit. Tony Mulvey, watching the house, watching them. Mrs. Hargrove didn't believe in second chances, or softness, or children in the workplace, especially not children who had somehow wormed their way into Mr. Mulvey's arms. She stood at the top of the east staircase with her clipboard in hand, watching Amanda sweep the hallway outside Tony's study. Caitlin sat beside the mop bucket, humming softly, twisting an old shoelace around her fingers. Hargrove narrowed her eyes. Manipulation. That's what this was. She'd seen women like Amanda before, pretty, desperate, and clever, dragging a child through rainstorms just to gain access to a man like Tony Mulvey, playing the sympathy card, using that broken little girl like a pawn. Not on her watch. "Williams," she snapped. "That child should not be sitting in a restricted area. Violation number 3 this week." Amanda stood up straight, pulse pounding. "Yes, ma'am. I'll move her right away." But Hargrove was already striding forward, grabbing Caitlin's arm with a grip far too firm for a child so small. "Discipline requires boundaries," she said coldly. "You've clearly failed to provide any." Caitlin's body went rigid. Her eyes widened, breath hitching. And then came the scream, shrill and raw, kind of scream that stops time. "Let her go," Amanda cried, rushing forward. But Caitlin was already in full panic, twisting in the woman's grip, sobbing uncontrollably. And that's when he appeared. Tony Mulvey stepped into the hallway, jacket half buttoned, tie undone. His expression shifted the moment he saw her. Caitlin, shaking, pale, eyes locked on him like he was her only safe place. "Release her," he said. His voice was low, controlled. Mrs. Hargrove didn't move. "I said let her go." Every syllable carried the weight of courtroom verdicts and power plays. But this wasn't business. This was personal. Mrs. Hargrove recoiled as if slapped, dropping Caitlin's arm. Amanda scooped her daughter into her arms, whispering prayers between breaths. "It's okay, baby. I've got you. Jesus, please, help her calm down." Tony turned to Hargrove, his jaw clenched, hands fisted at his sides. "If you ever lay a hand on her again," he said, "you will be escorted off this property, effective immediately." The hallway fell silent. Housekeepers stood frozen near the linen closets. A butler stopped mid-step with a silver tray. The air itself held its breath. Tony had never raised his voice over anything outside of a boardroom. Not once. Mrs. Hargrove opened her mouth, then shut it. She walked off without another word, heels clicking down the hall like gunfire. Amanda's legs nearly buckled. She lowered Caitlin onto a nearby couch and knelt beside her, both of them trembling. She looked up at Tony, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you protecting us?" Tony didn't answer. He just looked at them, like he didn't know either. That night, Mrs. Hargrove opened a locked cabinet in her office. Inside, a sealed envelope with Amanda's name on it, and the words "Forced Termination Request." The storm rolled in fast, like it had been waiting. Thunder cracked like bone against sky, rattling the tall windows of the Mulvey estate. Rain slammed down in angry sheets, soaking the gardens and hammering the roof like it had a score to settle. Amanda was wiping down the dining room table when she heard it, Caitlin's cry. Not just fussing. A deep, primal wail, full of fear she couldn't speak, and memories she didn't have words for. Amanda dropped the cloth and ran. Caitlin was curled in the corner of the laundry room, eyes wide, fingers jammed in her mouth to stifle the sound, like crying might make the thunder worse. "Baby, it's just a storm," Amanda whispered, gathering her up. "Mama's here, okay? I've got you." But Caitlin kept crying sharp, broken sobs that made Amanda's own chest ache. Then came footsteps. Fast, heavy, intentional. Tony appeared in the doorway, rain from the open terrace, behind him backlighting his silhouette like something out of a dream, or a memory. His eyes locked on the girl trembling in Amanda's arms. Without a word, he dropped to his knees and opened his hands. Caitlin reached for him, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Amanda hesitated, but then let go. Tony pulled the child into his chest, and she clung to his shirt, face buried against his heartbeat. He rocked her gently, whispering something Amanda couldn't quite hear, words too soft, maybe too sacred. And slowly the sobs faded. The storm didn't stop, but inside that room, it felt like peace had forced its way in anyway. Amanda sat on the floor across from them, arms wrapped around her knees. "She's terrified of storms," she said quietly. Ever since she had to sleep in a car during one. No roof, no heat, just her and me." Tony's jaw tightened. His hand stroked Caitlin's hair. "I lost my daughter in the middle of one," he said. "Her name was Lily, 2 years old. We were on a yacht for a business retreat. I turned my back for less than a minute, and she slipped under the railing." His voice cracked. "I pulled her out, but it was too late." Amanda pressed a hand to her mouth, eyes stinging. "I still hear her sometimes," he added, "in storms like this, or when the house gets too quiet." Amanda crossed the room, kneeling beside him. "It wasn't your fault," she whispered. "You loved her, and love doesn't stop just because someone's gone. It's still in you." Tony looked at her, really looked at her, and Amanda saw it. The pain behind the wealth, the man behind the myth. Caitlin had fallen asleep, small fists curled tightly in Tony's dress shirt, breath soft against his chest. He didn't move, didn't hand her back, didn't want to, and Amanda didn't ask him to. Outside, the storm finally passed, but inside, something new had just begun. It started with a whisper. By noon, it had become a wildfire. Amanda's playing him. She's using the child to get close to Mr. Mulvey. It's a setup, a trap. She's angling for inheritance. Amanda could feel the shift in the walls of the mansion, polite smiles curdling into suspicion, quiet glances hardening into glares. The same hands that once helped her carry mop buckets now slid away, like her skin was contagious. She caught wind of it in the staff kitchen first. A false complaint had been filed anonymously. It accused Amanda of orchestrating emotional manipulation to exploit Mr. Mulvey's grief, using her child as leverage to compromise estate operations. In simpler terms, they thought she was a gold digger using her daughter, and some of them wanted her gone. The split was immediate. A few staff, mostly the ones who'd watched Caitlin light up whenever Tony entered a room, defended Amanda quietly, but others sharpened their silence into swords. That afternoon, Amanda found Caitlin crying again, refusing to eat lunch. She hasn't touched a bite all morning. A staff member muttered behind her. Maybe she's emotionally unstable. Maybe it's the mother's fault. Amanda's hands trembled as she picked up her daughter, heart aching with shame she didn't deserve. She prayed under her breath, desperate. God, fight for me. I don't know what's happening, but you do. Cover us. In the hallway, she heard the words that nearly brought her to her knees. Human Resources is reviewing the claim. They might dismiss her quietly. No scandal. Dismiss her from the one job that was keeping them afloat, from the only roof they had. That evening, Tony called an emergency meeting. His tone was ice and fire wrapped in one. If anyone is caught spreading lies again, they'll be dismissed. I don't care who they are. His voice thundered through the estate like the previous week's storm. But Amanda hadn't heard that part yet, because she was in the nursery, behind the half-open door. She'd come to pick up Caitlin, only to find her curled up in Tony's lap, arms looped around his neck, refusing to come. No, Mama. No. I stay here. Caitlin cried, tightening her grip. Amanda's heart cracked, not because of Tony, but because her daughter didn't trust her in that moment. It was too much. She slipped into the guest laundry room and collapsed behind the dryer, sobs ripping through her chest like wildfire through dry grass. I'm losing everything, she whispered to God. My job, my name, my little girl's trust. Please, please don't let this be how it ends. Tears soaked her shirt as she curled inward, rocking like she used to when Caitlin was an infant. Outside the door, voices passed. She won't survive this. Mulvey might protect the kid, but Amanda? She's replaceable. In a mansion full of whispers, only heaven heard her prayer, and one pair of small feet had already slipped away, searching for her in the dark. The hallway was too quiet. Amanda's gut twisted the moment she stepped into the east wing, the kind of silence that hums just before lightning strikes. Then she heard it. Caitlin screaming. She dropped the towels and ran. The sound led her toward the formal drawing room, where Mrs. Hargrove stood, arms folded, flanked by 2 estate assistants. Caitlin was being pulled from the play area, little arms flailing. She needs psychological evaluation, Mrs. Hargrove said coldly. This attachment isn't healthy. I have clearance to remove her for assessment. Amanda lunged forward, but a guard, stationed for procedure, blocked her. Caitlin's face was red, soaked in tears, hands reaching wildly. No, I want Tony. Mama. Mama Tony. Help. The cry shattered something in Amanda, and then footsteps. Sharp, angry, familiar. Tony appeared in the doorway. His voice cut through the chaos like thunder. Release her. Now. The entire room froze. Mrs. Hargrove stiffened. I'm acting under HR protocol. She's exhibiting unhealthy dependency. I said. Tony growled, his eyes locked on Caitlin's trembling body. Release her. The staff stared as the assistants stepped back. Caitlin broke free and ran, straight into Tony's arms. He caught her easily, cradling her like he'd done it 100 times. Her sobs turned to hiccups as she buried her face in his chest, hands fisting his collar. Still holding her, Tony turned to face the entire staff. "Let me be clear," he said, voice iron. "Amanda and her daughter are not to be touched, harassed, or removed from this estate." He paused. "They will not leave unless they choose to." A wave of stunned silence passed through the room, like a tide pulling back, and effective immediately. Tony continued, eyes hard as steel. "Mrs. Hargrove is suspended pending full investigation." Gasps, whispers, shifting feet. No one dared move. Mrs. Hargrove opened her mouth, but no sound came. She turned on her heel and walked out, heels echoing like nails in the floor. Amanda stood frozen, hands to her chest, unable to process what had just happened. He chose them, publicly, powerfully, without hesitation. He put his name, his reputation, on the line for a maid's daughter, for a daughter. Tears welled up as Tony stepped toward Amanda. "She's okay now," he said gently, voice quiet again. "You're both okay." Amanda met his eyes, heart aching with gratitude and something else, something deeper she didn't dare name yet. "I don't know why she trusts you like this," Amanda whispered. Tony looked down at the girl now asleep on his chest, breathing steady against his heartbeat. "I don't either," he said, "but I'd burn this whole place down before I let anyone take her." Amanda swallowed hard. She believed him. From the shadows of the hallway, a camera clicked silently, and a reporter smiled. He'd just gotten the story of the year. The West Wing had always been empty, unused, unfurnished, cold, until now. Tony stood beside Amanda in the doorway, his hands in his pockets, watching her try to form the words she didn't know how to say. "This is too much," she whispered, eyes sweeping over the soft cream walls, the small nursery off the bedroom, the new twin bed tucked against the far wall with a pink knitted blanket folded neatly at the edge. "You deserve peace," he said, "and she deserves to fall asleep without fear." Amanda looked at him, her throat tightening. "I don't know how to accept something like this." He shrugged. "Start small. With the key." He pressed it into her palm. She stared at it like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Caitlin ran past them, barefoot on polished floors, giggling. She twirled once, then shouted, "Mama, my room has stars." Amanda turned. Glow-in-the-dark stars had been stuck to the ceiling, every one of them hand-placed. No decorator, no assistant. Tony had done it himself. The first night in the new room, Caitlin slept through the entire night, for the first time since Amanda could remember. No whimpering, no nightmares, just silence and soft, even breathing. Days passed gently, like water smoothing out stone. Caitlin began talking more, still softly, but with wonder in her voice. She asked questions. She hummed to herself. She touched books and flowers like they were brand new things. And she always knew when Tony was near. He'd started reading to her in the evenings. Sometimes she sat on his shoulder while he signed legal contracts. "Official business advisor," he'd say with a straight face, handing her a pen with no ink. Amanda would watch from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, heart tangled. Tony laughed more now, smiled without effort, listened instead of calculating. And every so often, Amanda caught herself wondering, is this who he was before the world broke him? One evening, after Caitlin had fallen asleep under a blanket on his lap, Tony didn't move. He sat there on the couch, one arm around the child, one hand resting on her tiny back. Amanda came to take her, but he gently shook his head. "She's okay," he said. "Let her rest a little longer." Amanda sat down across from him, the soft ticking of the old grandfather clock filling the room like a lullaby. Tony looked at her, not through her, at her. I didn't realize I'd stopped breathing, he said, voice low, until your daughter walked into my life and reminded me how. Amanda felt her chest tighten. Something holy passed between them. Not romance. Not yet. But healing. Quiet. Sacred. The kind that doesn't ask for permission. Across the estate, an email was sent to a national media outlet. Subject line: the billionaire, the maid, and the child who changed everything. The last straw came on a Tuesday. Mrs. Hargrove had tried one final stunt, a forged report, claiming Amanda had stolen property. The accusation didn't even make it past the front steps before Tony caught wind. By noon, her contract was terminated. By 2, her desk was cleared. No ceremony. No more chances. That night, Amanda stood in the entryway, fingers nervously smoothing Caitlin's hair as Tony approached with a sealed envelope. "I want you to stay," he said gently. Amanda blinked. I assumed, now that the chaos is over, we'd need to." Tony stepped closer, eyes steady. "You and Caitlin belong here. I've updated the records. You'll be listed as her full-time guardian on the estate. This isn't charity. It's family." Amanda's breath caught. Family. A word she hadn't let herself dream of in years. Caitlin, now in her favorite pink sweater, peeked out from behind her mother's leg. Her eyes brightened the moment she saw Tony. "Tony," she squealed, running to him with arms outstretched. She said his name, clearly. She hadn't just spoken, she'd chosen. Tony crouched down, scooping her into his arms as she giggled and pressed her cheek against his. Amanda's heart squeezed. There was no fear in her daughter's eyes anymore. No hiding. No frozen silence. The child who once flinched at every knock now hummed around the house like it belonged to her. Tony had become her safe place. Amanda didn't have to ask herself why. She already knew. Later, under the glow of the garden lights, Tony stood near the fountain, Caitlin asleep in his arms, tiny hands curled in his shirt like she never planned to let go. "I lost one daughter," he said quietly, not looking at Amanda, "and I thought I'd never breathe right again." The wind rustled the leaves around them, soft as a lullaby. "But God," he continued, voice thick, "He sent me another. Not to replace. Just to remind me I wasn't done." Amanda stepped beside him, brushing Caitlin's curls back with shaking fingers. "I used to think we were just surviving," she whispered. "But maybe we were being led." Tony turned toward her, eyes full of something unspoken. "You were." The next morning, in the sunlit breakfast room, Caitlin stood on a stool between them, one hand on Tony's shoulder, the other tugging at Amanda's sleeve. "Mama," she said sweetly, then looked at Tony with a smile that could melt concrete. "Dada." Time paused. Then she laughed, full and loud like music. And before either adult could react, she threw her tiny arms around them both, squeezing with all her might. A family, not by blood, but by healing, by heaven. Sometimes the child who trusts no one chooses exactly the person fate prepared for them. And sometimes God's greatest miracles begin with the smallest arms reaching out.